And we live, bro.
Perfect.
Hmm.
Yes. How have you been? How have you been? We
I'm
we we
alive.
missed we missed out last week because of KPLC Punitics.
And Kenya Power really needs to, get their act together. This outages. How many do you suffer in a month? I thought they had reduced.
I don't really count them,
Hmm.
but if I'm to, let's say, I'm engaged in a very vital activity that will require a continuous supply of power, I'd
Hmm.
rather have a backup. If I'm to
Hmm.
engage in a task, in fact, there are so many moments I've considered getting a power backup due to my online work because there are days when like 50% of the day went because of power. So
Hmm.
if I'm to if I'm doing something that is really really vital like life and death, it's so serious that I will need to have power. If maybe uh, I'm doing some sort of team coordination that requires
Yeah.
online work, I cannot rely on KPLC alone. Let's say I'm in the transport sector or some logistics work that requires me to be online coordinating some work that requires internet supply. without without a fully tested backup system, I will not launch any operation. It will be a prerequisite that before we launch our operation, our backup system should have been tested fully. It should have the capacity to run for at least 24 hours. That is how
You know,
serious this is.
come to think of it, I'm trying to think how many businesses or sort of either buildings, probably buildings do have some kind of a backup,
All of them,
uh, or
nearly
some
all of
kind
them,
of,
I think.
yeah. So what I'm trying to look is to look at the differences between Kenya and Rwanda. And actually, now maybe I'll be a little more intentional to check and confirm.
Hmm.
But I must say, I don't think many of the businesses here
Hmm.
have made the investment for power backup.
Yeah, because
Really, because
it's a very,
it's really,
what do I call
Mhm.
it? I call it mentally disturbing because one, you've spent money on your main supply.
Yes.
You've done your due diligence so that your main supply is connected.
Mhm.
You've connect maybe for purpose of diligence, you've put up a power generator just in case something goes wrong. But if you find yourself
Mhm.
using that generator like twice every month, we have a problem. You
We have a
might as well
problem.
you might as well disconnect Kenya Power, then include in your budgeting and push it to your clients that there's a daily diesel consumption. It's like you're running a vehicle now. So it is incorporated into your product sales or your whatever you're doing. Then that you know in your mind that this is part of our budget. But if something is just there, today not used, tomorrow not used, tomorrow but one, then 4 days into next week you use it for 48 hours. How do you plan now?
I
How
remember
do
because I've been running IT departments for a while, which, part of it is,
you?
maintaining a data center. And critical to that is ensuring there's consistent power supply because the services there have to, run regardless of whether Kenya Power is
Yes,
running or not.
there's no space for interruption.
And I think come to think of it, if I think of all the major businesses, be they NGOs or organizations, they all have the, there's a normalized thing that if at all you're gonna take take up a place, particularly if it is a single standing building, you're not sharing with anyone. You need to make investment for a generator.
Definitely.
I do have one customer and who is an NGO here, and now come to think of it, I don't think I've ever seen a generator in and around their office because power is known to be consistent. If there's an outage, typically it's that 1 to 5 minutes. It's one of those things that go, and before you know it, you just probably, if there's an outage and you're working on something that requires internet, maybe you just need to get out of your desk, go to your go grab a cup of coffee. By the time your back power is back on. So it's not a serious thing. And then the frequency also is not that much. It's like once or twice in a month, and it's not prolonged. The idea that we've made generators and power backups to be a normal thing. Anytime you're putting a commercial building anywhere in Nairobi, a generator is part of that budget without thinking twice. I remember actually a friend telling me, this load shedding that South Africans are experiencing.
Yeah.
They experienced it. I think it's not the first time. I think there's a time they had a similar regime running. And I think this was probably around maybe in the early 2010. And I remember telling me a friend was coming out of South Africa. They were going through that load shedding. And he was surprised to realize he was in a commercial building. Load shedding was in place. And, excuse me.
Sorry.
Um, and there was no generator because this was a totally new reality that these guys were coming to terms with. They always knew power was there. The idea that there will be a power outage was almost unthinkable. Now that they're experiencing it,
You
it
see,
has
for
caught
South
them
Africa,
unaware because no one was planning for it. So to see that as a very normalized thing in a place like Nairobi, it shows there's a failure somewhere, that the main power supply is failing. And that's why I guess they need to introduce, private sector players. I was surprised. I told you I worked in Somalia, and one interesting thing in Somalia is, like, I remember our office there had three power supplies. So if
private,
one goes, they were all private.
with the different
They
lines.
different lines. So they have put three of them in the office. So the backup there is another power supply. So I mean, it was an interesting thing to come to that realization that
I think Sheriff
a
Mustafa is
backup
here.
is
So, like,
another. So
you'll
yes,
have
so
three sets of
yes,
lines: Kenya Power, Andrew Mutua Power Supply, Ngudi Juma
yes,
thing. Sheriff.
exactly.
See, the lines will look very congested. It will look very jumbled up. We can imagine. You can see like some
No,
Kenya
if it is
KPLC
right,
installations.
okay. Mm.
So you can see some, if you go around town, some
Mhm.
KPLC installations is only one supplier, but the lines are so jumbled up. Zimekoroge couple. So I'm trying to imagine if there are three,
It's
how.
how you do it. I mean, it's the standard. Of course, before even somebody approves
Hmm.
that installation, then there must be certain standards that should have been applied.
That's
So
interesting. I
it's a
that,
new thing. And they're already private power suppliers. It's just that in the case for Kenya, they're supplying to government.
yeah, they are
So
called
government becomes the aggregator
independent.
of all these different private power providers, and then still distributes through Kenya Power.
They're called independent
So
power producers, I think, to come maybe.
Exactly. Those are the
Mm,
ones, independent power producers.
mm.
But I think the bigger thing that now needs to happen is they now need to interface directly with their customer as opposed through government. Because even some of the big issues you guys are experiencing with Kenya Power, I was even seeing an headline that was saying that Kenya Power wants now to start billing its customers in dollars. I mean, how ridiculous is that? And it's because, if you have an independent power producer supplying to government, there's no competition. This guy has been told you provide this much. Probably there's some underhanded agreements they have there. So number one, in terms of service level agreements, I'm sure they are not even following any of that, but they still get paid because no one is holding them accountable. Oops, we've lost. I hope he's not been kicked out by Kenya Power. Okay, let's give Brian Ngudi Njuma some time. Um, I don't know what has happened to him.
Yes, I can see
Hey,
myself now.
what's happening?
Andrew.
Is it me or you? Is it my
My
connection
camera
that
is working. My internet was okay.
it was
Uh,
just showing you going round and round?
me, I saw so. I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, we are back. We are
Hmm.
back. So I was just saying, because these independent power producers are working directly with government, I'm sure a lot of things like service level agreements are not even being followed. They end up, charging the government at a premium. But I'm sure if they were to be in the free market where they interface directly with the customer, and now they have to be held accountable for the services they are providing, um, they'll definitely up their game to ensure that they're providing consistent services. But now, if you're giving you're supplying to government, and we know what happens with government business, it is typically Malia Uma.
They normally say government business is public business. Public business is everybody's business, and everybody's business is nobody's business.
Exactly.
Actually, I actually have a former colleague who's now a factory manager at an independent power producer. The line, it's actually these are diesel engines. These are actually ship engines, huge generators.
Agreco. Is this Agreco ones? Eh?
I forget the name of the
Which
company.
are
It's
the-
here in Kitengela.
Mhm.
They've never run those systems. That those engines are ever quiet.
What do you mean?
They're just quiet. Nothing is happening.
And they still get paid?
They have been like that for over 3 years now. So, mm, mm. And
So
then
I mean, I think that's one area definitely needs privatization.
yeah,
Once you privatize that sector, it will be like the telco sector. It will change everything. It will
but
literally
again,
it will transform that sector in a big way.
in the developed world, power, is it liberalized or is it somewhere
Yes, if
government
you
thing?
go to places like US, it is.
It's
Of
is
course, many countries. I mean, if you talk of even South Africa, there it's not
mm.
liberalized. They all rely on a government entity called ESCOM. Go to Uganda, I think they use something they call Umeme.
And
Um,
places like US,
it's one of
UK,
those sectors. Yeah,
in places developed world, America, US, UK, Sweden.
US it is. It is, and maybe Mustafa can confirm, but power is not supplied by government. These are all private entities.
So these
I'm
are
sure
these
the
are
service provider is using in Ohio is not the same that you'd use in a place like Atlanta.
so
Would
it
be probably
is
another price
basically
altogether.
profit motivated, result driven situation, such
Yes,
that we are not
exactly.
dealing with individuals who are on payroll. As long as
Mhm.
you've logged in, pesa yako itakuja mwisho wa mwezi. So that's not the case.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
see, that's what we are facing some of this parastatal business, because somebody's there, he knows he's there up to retirement. His
Mhm.
retirement benefits are there, so he'll be operating at neutral gear. And I remember, I think we've had four shows getting disrupted because of power, right? 4 to 5 shows, if I'm not wrong, we've
You
suffered due
mean
to our shows.
FFS?
These shows, this FFS,
Oh, sure.
we've had
Yeah, I
this
think we've had,
disruption.
yeah, maybe this other one was the third one, if I'm not
Uh,
mistaken. I don't know if it's the third or fourth. Not
and
so
then
many.
now this is us now. Now
Mm.
remember the one we had, a very long one, which led to kids dying in hospitals. Then there was a one which
Oh,
was
yeah,
recently
I
someone
saw you
died
shared
in
with me.
Kenya.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Even
I
can you
think
imagine the president also suffered that outage? I think during his presentation in Naivasha. I think they had a government, and he didn't even mention a thing about it. He just continued like nothing is happening.
alikuwa
I mean,
anaongea kama ako gizani,
exactly. Wacha hata nitafute hiyo
because
video.
there was a time it happened during Kibaki's time also. He was giving a speech in a hotel, then whoop, the lights went out. So
Yes,
if you had some very cheeky characters inside there, who could have been audience to some very weird happenings. So then again, this thing called we take it lightly, but we need to be very careful who we put in power. This is the this is the definition of choices have consequences. Yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
I mean, these are the
This
real
is the,
implications. It's not a
yeah.
question of I've gotten a slight disruption. It's a life and death issue.
This life and death. So it's very important. This thing we take it for granted, but especially okay, the presidency, that is just something else. It's too high, and there are so many competing interests there. But these things like governor, MCA, senators, this is where you should be very careful who you put in power, because these are the people who are in your, let's say, direct line of pressure. These are people you can pressurize and they can escalate things up. The senator for your area, this is an individual whom you compare to the president, you can access him easily. Tell bwana senator tumwapigia kura ABCD. Why do you have so many these power outages? Why is this not happening? So when it comes to voting, we know very well, to avoid being naive, we know presidency comes with, it's just something, just a completely different ball game. The interests there are extremely huge. We don't want to touch on that. But senators, MCAs, governors, these are the people we have to listen to. Karibu sana Robert SDC. These are the individuals you have to listen to very keenly when they are giving their manifesto. President, where are you going to bump into the president? Even when you have to be lucky beyond. Even if you bump into him, chances are you'll be so overwhelmed by the trappings of power, you'll sing praises in his presence. Ah, mambo sawa kabisa. Hey. But an individual who's close to you, that MCA, these are the individuals who should feel the heat when you are going through some of this shitty stuff. You have a road that is very important, full of potholes. Senator, put him to task. If he gets that kind of pressure continuously, he'll have to escalate it, and they will listen to him. Because if they don't listen to him, it screws up his political future. So This
No, that's
decision,
true. And I mean, I guess that was the whole idea of devolution, the idea that you're bringing the government closer to you,
yes.
the idea
So
that now resources are not being managed high up at the national level, but
yes,
now you've got your own allocation. Now you can control that. I mean, I think the
and
most
then
recent report showed how a number of uh, counties, including Nairobi, very few of them have spent their budgets on development. So, what is happening with all this money? It's all being stolen. This is the money they are using to shuttle from one country to another on some very high priced tickets, and they steal money on some ridiculous imprests, their per diems and stuff. So yes, it's sad to see how devolution is not being we are not gaining the value out of it.
I
I think
think,
for Nairobi, this NMS was only around for about 100 or so days, but you can literally pinpoint what they did within those 100 days.
you see,
You've
the,
got a nigger like this guy, and nothing is happening.
what's happening
Yeah,
is
go on.
this. I think what has come to bite us in the ass is voting along party lines. We go there and say, "Oh, mimi ni UDA," so you don't even look at who is there. You're even not even taking time to listen to who is this, and you just do UDA or whatever. You just line it up. You pack a team, but the individual you are voting for, his principles are practically non-existent. Like this gentleman, is it called Musili or who? Some senator, I think, from Embu. Even the people of Embu are saying, we don't believe we voted for this clown. And chances are they saw the party and say, UDA, or they just saw the yellow color, say, 20 cars. Now, whenever he speaks
Mm.
in parliament, people are like, what was I
Huyu ni
smoking when
nani?
I voted for this man?
Sinilo
Something,
anaitaga nini? Six piece,
see, three piece or whatever, six piece or whatnot.
3 piece.
People are
So it's
now, somebody is saying he
going
must
all the
have
way
been
down.
somebody must have been under some hallucination when he voted. So, no, it's not hallucination. You just saw yellow, yellow, yellow. You tunaenda naye. Now look at the mess you are in. Uh, a lead, one of the most sharpest guys in leadership had an interview with Andrew Kibe, and they were saying, Mbagadi Hospital, they have an X-ray, yes, but
Mhm.
that guard is a metallic steel guard that they used to lock it up when you are doing the X-ray so that
Mm,
people around don't get exposed to the radiation. It's
yeah,
missing. How is it
yeah.
costing? 700,000. But Mweshimiwa is busy posting his dimples on billboards all over the place. Who told you want to look at dimples? So again, be very careful. This, yes, you may have your person on the main seat. Main seat haina shida. Those are mambos are juju because like the noise we were making a few days ago. See, they are meeting with the Rao. So wanaongea. So don't worry about that seat.
Oh,
Hiyo because one moment you're here, sijui nini, maandamano, tear gas, marisasi, both plastic and metal bullets. These guys are sitting there talking now, wakikunywa chai ya shilingi 700. I don't know, you still have a bullet lodged in your ass and bado mnachangisha harambee, sijui ende ukafanye sijui nini. Target 1.2 million because you are puny. So far mmefikisha 150,000. You are far from far. Pressure should, you'd rather go maandamano over these senators, these MCAs who are there. You can actually knock on his door, mwambie wewe chief, hii mashimo kwa barabara inafaa nini hapa, wewe tumekupigia kura. You can knock at even some, even you know pale wanaishi, mwambie boss, sisi we cannot afford a generator like you. Umesikia? Hii kumnguruma generator sisi hatuna uwezo, hata nikinunua generator I can't afford to fuel it. So why did we vote you in? These are the people whom you can make them feel that they are not getting a vote from you next time. But you went ahead and vote your six piece or whatever piece you want to call it. You are stuck with a combination of charlatans, clowns, and all manner of buffoons. Na tumewachagua wenyewe. And as I normally say, um, a lion can only lead lions. When you see lions in a pride, you have a pride of lions. There'll be a huge lion there leading them, and he's a fellow lion. He's a reflection of themselves. So whatever we are seeing here is also a reflection of us.
It is. It's a,
9.5,
it is.
95% of the people when a week up, put them in governor seat for 1 week. Tuone kama atatoka na Lexus hapo, or a Range Rover, even a helicopter.
Hata
So
nilikuwa naona when I saw Sakaja, I think he was headed for an interview. I think I saw it on Instagram.
mm,
He was headed for an interview at a radio station. I think it was Capital FM at Two Rivers.
mm.
It captures him getting off his nice, luxurious Land Rover. This must be what? Top of the range. Maybe a 2023, 2024
But used to buy
model.
taxpayers' money, see you.
Mm. Exactly.
Mm.
I mean,
Purchased by taxpayers' money.
it should
And
have
still,
come in a
that
decent.
that thing, that still door ya guard x-rays bado haijawekwa.
Bado ijawekwa.
Eh?
One of his billboards can sponsor that.
So again, that's a reflection of us. As we talk, when you collect of group of you, like you go there to inaitwaje that place at Jivanji, bunge la wananchi. If you
Bunge
take
la
10
wananchi.
people there, put them in let's say in Nairobi City Hall, my friend, you'll have 10 billionaires there. So these people are a reflection of us. As much as we talk, these are because there's no way a kangaroo will lead a lion. When you look at a pride of lions, it's kangaroos. It is lions who lead lions. You can't find a hyena leading a pack of lions. That hyena will be killed and eaten. You won't find something like a flock of crows being led by an eagle. So these people that we keep talking against, they are a reflection of us. They are you and me. They are kwani DNA ni the same DNA to kwani the same Kenya. And I think the bitterness is because we don't have an opportunity to steal. It's like wewe toka
Exactly.
sisi tuibe bwana. Toka hapo ndani bwana. We need to eat.
How many people when they're on the outside, they seem like the best. I mean, Sakaja, because of his, very articulate, fluent person. But he's just another Sonko, and even Sonko is even better. He's a savvy Sonko who can speak good English, but in terms of delivery, zero. And to some degree, maybe Sonko is better. I came across this tweet from Mohamed RC. I think he's of course a Kenyan. I think he's in
He's
the
a social
hospitality.
commentator. I know him. I used to follow him a lot on Facebook. I know him.
Yeah. Or he used to be the past chairman of Kenya Tourism
Yes.
Federation.
Yes.
He's in the hospitality sector.
Yeah, private
Yeah,
sector.
as you say,
He's a
public
good social
commentator.
commentator. What did he say?
Yeah. He said in Rwanda, borders cannot dare jump a red light. Jaribu
No.
Shenzi. It all boiled down to leadership and ruthless accountability. Speaking good English, sounding sophisticated is pretty useless. Nidhamu times 27. I think maybe he made what? 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's to mean, all day, every day.
See, now,
People really following the rules. And this is, I think this was a swipe at Kenyans. I think he was trying just to throw shade at Kenyans, saying, with your good English, but your city is,
As
yeah.
is what Tanzanians were saying, kizungu kingi, tumbo lina njaa na uko gizani. You know good English, but you have not eaten for days and you are in a very dark place. Literally speaking, dark. So,
This is what you call dignity, if you ask me. This is dignity,
what am I
that
asking? That,
that
that,
we
that
love ourselves enough to desire to have environments that are clean and organized, and that we follow and abide by the rules.
this traffic light, is there a policeman supervising it?
No. So they do put some policemen, like this particular intersection is now leading to downtown
Hmm.
Rwanda, this particular picture. And in key intersections, there's a policeman, but he's not manning the traffic. He's just sort of observing, just to ensure that he's keeping an eye and maintaining
Oversight.
order.
Oversight.
Just oversight. So you see him standing on the sidelines. And this is something that I thought actually Kenya should think of adopting. I remember when, I think it was maybe in the must have been in the early parts of 2023, there was a heightened spike in crime across various parts of the CBD in Nairobi. And I was saying, if there's a visible presence of police, let's say a street like Moi Avenue, you could probably deploy about two or three of them, one at each end of the road, another one at the other end, and maybe one in the middle. That visible presence of police in and of itself instills order and civility. Just that presence. And I know people have criticized Rwanda for this to some degree, but I tell you, there's a need to
You see,
have
that
visible
topic,
presence of
it's a very interesting
in.
topic. I was listening to my favorite podcaster, Eddie Pinero. So I was referencing to Rwanda, where they say Rwanda, there's no freedom and whatnot. Let me tell you something, Andrew. As far as you're
That's a
dealing
book.
with human beings,
Yes.
freedom equals anarchy.
100%.
Freedom and
100%.
anarchy, anus to anus.
Mm.
A human
I
being
mean,
is
have you seen the lawlessness in America?
anarchy.
All in the guise of freedom.
And
That somebody can run into a shop, loot it, and run scot free.
yes, it happened in some it was some high-end boutique. They stole some Louis Vuitton handbags, shoes, and whatnot. A very large group of people, not just one. They stormed in huge numbers. The way in Kenya, we when you go, I think in northern areas where they do cattle rustling, they did the rustling of Louis Vuitton rustling. Huge numbers of
Mhm.
people storming, take things, and take off. So whoever tells you about freedom, they don't know freedom. Freedom is anarchy. A human being operates on using order. That is why I'm not going to walk into my neighbor's house straight into his kitchen and take his food. I'll end up in a police cell with a few
Yeah,
bruises,
and,
and
and
dents
I
on my skull.
and I think many people try to operate under the guise of that there's some internal self-regulation that we can apply. But I think human beings sometimes left to their own devices work against themselves.
So
And
okay,
I guess
yes,
that's why they need a policeman.
we'll talk of
That's
yes,
why they
we'll talk
need
of
law
if we talk of
to sort of set those boundaries.
if
So
we talk of
if you leave them to their own devices, then you're just setting yourself up for failure.
You see, if you talk
Yeah.
of
So
internal self-regulation, how do we know? How do I know that I have? Do I have an indicator on my head? Brian Ngudi Juma has internal self. You don't know. You are a potential criminal wherever you go. Where you go, you are a potential criminal. Hmm? What
Yeah,
prevents me from picking a stone and smashing somebody's window? There's nothing. So
nothing.
now, as much as I know myself, the people outside me do not know me. The government doesn't know how I'm going unless you have some very serious mind reading systems that can read my mind. Sema huyu jamaa anapanga kuiba vitu fulani. But we can't know. So that system of wherever you are, I think you're operating. If anybody is a potential criminal, come macho. And the moment I know that there's somebody somewhere watching my every move, now that will be that will be a supplement to my internal self-control. One, there's internal
Yeah.
self-control. I'm okay. There's somebody watching, but I'm okay with him watching because I'm not planning to do anything. The
And
internal
I know we
self-control
discussed this
is a
before.
supplement.
Yeah, we discussed something about crime
Hmm.
a few weeks back,
Hmm.
and I reflected on this. Why is it that places like here in Rwanda, or if you think of the UAE, they have got almost near to zero crime rates. That I understand somebody can leave their laptop at a coffee shop or at an open street and it will still remain where it is. It's because they have enforced rules that it's very costly for you if you decide to steal. Very, very costly that you lose a limb, that you'll probably be put in jail for life or something. And some people might argue, but that's petty theft. But it's that petty theft that then grows into something else.
But it's still theft. You see,
That is theft. It's actually the
you
worst because
because
if
it's
and that's
petty.
what
Petty
thinking
according to
they
who?
have in the US, where they have in some of these cities where they have allowed this to happen, where they say if you don't steal anything above up to 1,000, then they won't spend the resources to arrest you, take you to court, get you arraigned and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But what is that doing? It's just a series of those events happening. Then before you know it, social disorder happens. So it's taming those small little human uh, extravagances, if I may put it as such, or deviancy that
You
then
see,
will ensure the wider society then now will live within the order that you set.
when you say petty theft, most of the time it is said petty theft. It's towards the person who's stealing. To the person who has lost that item, is not petty. So that
100%.
that petty thing is just some. I think some creating con is just part of the matrix. You are saying stealing a handbag is petty. If it is your handbag, will you call it petty? Will you go home and say, I had a nice day, but niliibiwa handbag, but it's a petty thing, so hakuna shida.
Mm,
Stealing a
yes.
laptop is they are calling it petty. What if that laptop contains some key project data or some data that you've collected over the years? Is it petty to you?
And it is this small number of human beings that have decided not to abide by the law
Mm.
that seems to be in a sense protected by the law at the expense of law abiding tax paying citizens.
In fact,
So
the
it's
law-abiding guys look stupid.
weird when you have this minority almost lording over us, because then the government is failing on its part in terms of enforcement and putting these guys in check.
That's why, as you said, it's like the guys who are following the law, they are now looking stupid. Like, why are you not stealing?
Yeah,
Stupid to be aware.
100%.
Mm.
Yeah.
It reminds me of I think this happened with long ago. I think it was with either Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali. He went to report to the police that his bike was stolen, and the cops said, "You go steal one too." Where are we, Bepia? So for America,
Man
this is
eat
something that has
man
been
society.
boiling.
That's the man eat man society. Yeah.
Mm. But our friends in the Middle East, those guys are no joke.
No jokers, bro.
You are calling it petty to the person who lost his item. It's not petty. That's some crazy shit. So at the end of the day, we normally say shit flows from the top. Shit flows from the top because uh, if we have somebody in leadership who's ready to blow millions of shillings for us to see his dimples on a billboard, and then there's some piece of equipment that is 700,000 shillings for a county government. That's cheap shit money. That door costs
Exactly.
700,000. That is cheap shit cash. The same amount of money, very close to what he paid for failing to attend. There's a certain session he failed to attend, so he was fined 500,000, which he paid very quickly. So you can imagine the
And I'm sure it's not money coming out of his own pocket.
very, very unlikely, very
Mm.
unlikely. So that brings
I mean,
us.
this is ridiculous. These are the people that needs to be literally shot in the head because just imagine the cost of not putting that X-ray door. What does it mean? That somebody who was supposed to get a life-saving medical procedure couldn't get it, or had to put, an arm and a leg to get it at a private hospital, while he or she has paid taxes and should be able to, enjoy those services. But because of negligence from the government and someone like this, and again, this is probably the downside of devolution, because it has created these smaller kingpins, or what would be probably the name to call them, because now they have their own budgets and their own little kingdoms. Then they can run roughshod on everyone else, with no accountability. I mean, we knew before when it was national government, it was just a select few people on top. Definitely, I wouldn't want to revert to that, even with these downsides that we have with devolution. But yes, we definitely need to correct this such that these leakages, bro. I think we are a very rich country, bro. When I think about
Yeah,
it, because
if you look
even
at
with
the
all this stealing, you see something. But what if that stealing was reduced? We know it
was
can't
it
come down all the way to zero, but
was it the previous
with
government,
a
the
level of
head of the previous government,
controls and
who
accountability.
said
Yeah. Mhm.
that we were losing 2 billion shillings per day?
Exactly. Can you remember that?
I don't think
That was the president himself
that was
saying
a
that.
slip of the tongue. You do not want to say such things. You are embarrassing yourself.
Exactly. You're
Two
the one
billion per day.
accountable for that.
Hmm. 2 billion, because that amounts to 60 billion shillings per month. Because if you look at it logically, if you are losing 2 billion per day, within 4 months the country si nchi imefunga. The country should have shut down a very long time ago. Kila mtu apewe kipande yake uende pale utaenda nayo. But the country is still running. How are we running? I'm
I
looking
think
at
I was thinking that also some other stats showing Kenya was, is it number 7 in Africa as the largest economy? Must have been Mwango or something. Let me even try and see largest economies, top 10.
largest economy with the power blackouts. But largest in what?
Exactly.
Hmm. Some
These are the
things.
things that need to be probed, because
Hmm.
um, that aspect of that quality of life needs to be probed further.
You see, it's important that uh, the data should reflect the situation on the ground. You are seventh in the world in terms of what? We look
Yeah,
at
actually, here
counties
it
like,
is. Number
was it
7.
some pictures? I saw some pictures of Turkana County, and then they had received money. I think it was in last regime in billions of shillings, but the place looks horrid. With those, is it manyatas, nyumba imetengenezwa na udongo na makaratasi and what? Unasema, where's the money going? Then 5 years from now, some of these leaders, after they've left power, they'll come back as entrepreneurs. So Kenya tuko namba ngapi?
Number 7.
Number
And this is
seven.
all puny. We should be here around, because I mean, what's the population of Algeria? Must be like maybe less than
So
10.
if we are number 7 minus stealing, plus stealing, so if you remove the stealing, will be number 1. What are you saying?
Yes, we should
Yeah,
be up here, at least top five. We should be a
yeah.
top five economy.
Even top two seem bad because if you look at the billions that are being leaked out, and you are
Oh,
number
yeah.
7, okay, plug these leaks will be even Egypt will get scared of us.
Hey, Egypt now is the biggest economy in Africa. Eh?
Yeah, the big Egypt is huge one. The manufacturing sector of Egypt is fantastic. I've been looking at
That's
their work, especially in terms of automobiles. Way ahead
I
in
hear
one.
like,
Yes,
the buses that are in London that are used, in London are built in Egypt.
really.
That's what I understand. I'll have to
The
check.
buses in
So
I know some
in
of them
London,
are from China, BYD.
mhm.
BYD come from China. Uh, I know for sure that London Metropolitan buys a lot of buses from China. In fact, they bought
Okay.
their last purchase was 300 buses. So at the end of the day, this thing called voting, especially at the lower echelons of government, has to be taken seriously. The top part will not react if the bottom part is dead. The top part has to feel the itch at the toes level, look at chin chin. The leaders at the bottom end should actually feel the pressure. Otherwise, we are fighting a losing war. It's a it's a crazy day. It's a crazy situation for us. I'm very excited. No, no, not excited, but excited. But my hopes are low. My team, Mercedes AMG Petronas.
Mhm. How is it performing?
Hey, it's like we're being led by Olelenko.
And
we
I thought this season you guys are coming in strong, bro.
we
Yeah?
are being
What's
led by
happening there?
Olelenko. Hakuna. Hey, po. Life can be hard. Life can be. You see, I like
It's
about
coming up.
Formula One. You know, Formula One is a
Mm.
very strange. Is a very strange sport. In Formula One, you design the car. Then
Mhm.
after designing the car, you understand what you've designed. You design it, then you
Mhm.
understand it because these
Mhm. What do you
vehicles
mean?
are built to the limit. You are building any Akunele allowances, it's built to the limit. So whatever you are building, you don't know how it's going to behave. And then there's also the testing periods are limited. Wind tunnel time, ile kutest kwa tunnel pia is limited. So in most cases, you are like somebody who's cooking things and you don't know itatoka harufu mbaya, harufu nzuri, will you end up with a diarrhea, stomachache and whatnot. So that's where, and with the cost cap, we have a formula, we have a cost cap nowadays. You cannot throw money at everything. So it's driven by knowledge. And Red Bull have really done it this time. There's a gentleman called Adrian Newey. He's the chief technical officer. He's an aerodynamist. The vehicle they've made is called an Hallelujah vehicle. It's like the rest of the teams are on scooters, and these guys are on a 1000cc motorbike. And we can only compete to number two. That is if we can compete. So nowadays, I just watch Formula One and I just say Hamilton, we fanya vile utaweza hii gari hapana. In fact, I remember last season there was a race, the vehicle was so bad that the team principal came on radio say, okay, listen, we know this vehicle is bad. We endesha to just drive it. Endesha ufikishe mwisho tutaongea baadaye. It's a very interesting. What really draws me to Formula apart from Lewis Hamilton and whatever he does, the it's a technological race in that it's a bit strange, but an average driver with a very good car can win a race. It's actually is what you call a spec is a technological race. It's actually a race between who designs the best vehicle. And I believe the best engineers come from Formula One. Case study, McLaren. Your mic is off.
Yeah. So do they use some of those learnings from Formula One into the production cars that we use day to day?
Yes, hybrid technology was
Started off.
developed within Formula One. Hybrid
Mm.
technology. There are so many bits of technology because the engineers in Formula One, they build them what you call with minimum allowances. And then I think they have the sharpest speed. I remember last season, McLaren, they came into the season with a very horrible car. But after shuffling a few people, halfway through, the vehicle simply turned around and came alive, started performing well. So any professional working in Formula One, that's a magician, and especially the hybrid technology. They are the ones who sort of they are the pioneer because they are using it for competitive purposes. And I can tell you, for example, the preparing a Formula One car for starting, you cannot switch off a Formula One car for like 24 hours, then you turn the key. Haitawaka. You have to keep the engine warm for like 10 hours non-stop because that windage
10
space.
hours.
Yeah, you have to keep it. You must circulate some warm liquid in the engine because in the windage, the space between the piston and the cylinder is so small that
Mhm.
engine ikikool, those things will lock. Gari haitawaka. So you have to keep on circulating warm water. Then when it comes to firing the engine, you have to pump in. They normally pump in lubricant continuously. Then somebody is looking at the lubricant pressure. Once pressure has reached optimal level is when the vehicle is fired. And it's a headache. I remember the 2014 Mercedes Benz. They put together the engine, and for some weird reason, for the first 36 hours, the engine refused to fire. They have the best engineers, the engine is not working. Then, after another, I think, 24 hours, the engine fired in
Mhm.
only one piston because you are designing this thing with minimum limits, minimum allowances. So, anything that goes wrong shuts down the car, creates a mess.
Mm.
And there are situations whereby the vehicle is ready to fire and everything, and it breaks down before it even gets to the starting line. Case study last year's this guy called Yuki Tsunoda. When they were lining the vehicle to go for the grid to start the race, you come from the pit, you park it, the vehicle is prepared, then you do what you call a formation lap. During formation lap, the engine just died.
Mhm.
Race engineer says this is a terminal error. Your race is ended before you start. It's like you are even worse than a 1 minute man.
Mhm.
Ulivuliwa nguo na ukamaliza biashara.
Yeah, man.
Mm.
I guess that brings us to the end.
Yes.
It was a good. That was a good conversation on power sector, law and order.
Mm.
Um, Talking about accountability among our political class. I think,
Which is
why
a
do we call
reflection,
them leaders? They're really not leaders. These are just,
and that is a
they're
reflection of
thieves.
our own accountability.
Mm.
Mm. As I said, a dog cannot lead wolves. By the time a wolf, this creature gets forward to start leading a pack of wolves, it has to be a wolf. It has to
Mhm.
be more of a wolf than these other wolves. So for someone to get to that top area, he has to
Mhm.
be, as we call ourselves the punies, he has to be more puny than us. If you are thugs, he has to be more thuggish. If you're a bunch of cheats, he has to be more of a cheat. So change comes from within us. These people are not going into power with guns blazing and shooting their way into these seats. We are voting for them. We are fighting for them, killing each other for them. Our women are gyrating their hips for them.
For me, I think I think we always talk of, we choose who we are
Yeah,
and all these kind of things. Yes, there's a reality to that, but I think the entire system is screwed up. It's broken. This thing we are calling, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Democracy or election systems, or it's broken. It seems not to be what it's said to be, because it's not producing that kind of reality. And we are seeing that even in so-called mature democracies, how they're sort of breaking down now. Um, so I think it points more to the system.
we can say it's broken down, or we can say we
Mm,
installed the wrong system.
yeah, we did
Because
install the.
if it is the wrong system, this is how it should be behaving.
Yep.
If you're in a rubbish
It,
dump and it's smelly and there is full of flies, rats, and cockroaches, then the rubbish dump is working properly. If you are in a rubbish dump, then you hear a roof ya Louis Vuitton, that rubbish dump, there's a problem with it.
mm,
So this particular system is the way it's working the way it should.
no, that's true. It is
Yeah.
working the way it should.
Mm.
So that's what
So
I'm
we need.
saying.
Mm.
The system we have installed, it's not right for us. I think it's already proven that to us. I
It's
mean,
not
things of
working.
devolution, I think it's great. I, I think the so-called people that we uh, choose and then empower to be the custodian of this system, I think over time they have proved they are not really working for the intended benefit of their people, of their constituents.
It's like you are doing something. I think it's like a system is running. It's running the way it should, but there's a
Mhm.
missing plugin. The plugin that you are missing is the plugin of consequences, especially at high level. That plugin is not there, such that I can plunder, rob, rape, and I simply throw money and everything will go. Like we have someone, a key person, a person of prominence, who shot someone in it wasn't broad daylight,
And
but
that's
you could
what-
be seen.
yeah.
Yeah, you see. So that necessary, like my little knowledge in software, their software usually run properly. They'll just run without hitches. But
Yeah.
as long as there's no plugin missing, you'll notice this thing is acting weird. So that
Mm.
plugin of, if you do this, especially when you're at high level, you'll suffer consequences, very serious ones. That is the plugin
But
that.
remember, you just said it's not an issue of even the plug-in. It's an
Mm.
issue of the system itself.
maybe
What we
the
are
plugin
witnessing,
maybe the
probably the
plugin
features.
can cause, or the plugin has been suppressed.
I don't even, all these manifestations you are seeing, or rather outcomes of this system,
Mm.
probably indicate that this is actually a feature intended for the system. So
This
if
is
we
how it
have
should
to have an overhaul, is definitely we have to
reboot.
do a reboot, do a clean sweep and install another operating system, because this one, the features it has is what we're now seeing. And
Is
I don't think
murdered.
a bug fix will be able to fix it, because a bug fix only sorts out symptomatic issues. But
Mm.
the core, the kernel of that operating system is built to produce what we are seeing.
You may just succeed in shortening the booting time up and apart, but in essence, it's still the same load of crap.
The feature set, it's a feature. This one is not a bug, it's a feature in the system. It's a feature.
Interesting times, very interesting times, such that the softwares which should be working properly are struggling to stay afloat.
Mm.
Interesting times to be alive. 1 hour of pure and rehearsed bombardment. I want to say thank you very much for Mr. Robert SFBC, the
It's
ever
a
present
busy.
Sheriff Mustafa.
Yeah.
Tunasema asante sana for being here. and for being part of this meaningless ramble by two maybe crazy people. You never know. Maybe you are the ones who are crazy here. You never know. See, when you go to a rubbish dump, you start saying hapa mahali ni pachafu sana. The cockroaches will look at you and say, ati ni uchafu ni nini?
Exactly. Mhm.
What are you talking of? So uh, thank you so much, Mr. My able co-host. Can we say adios?
See ya.
See ya.